appetizer from our first reader. The moon, whose perfect nickel shape will tonight, from its zenith, illuminate peeling paint and rust and thick black grease, descends to the horizon. The glowing orange mass poised at the approach like a molten steel wheel. That is from a memorial written by our first reader tonight, John Simon. He is a freelance editor by profession and a poet by avocation. Among local authors' books edited by the UNH alone are Nathan Rizzo's Tower 13 and Perry McKinney's Enjoy the Journey. Dream Garden, an historical novel set in mid-18th and mid-19th century China, co-authored by John Simon and Lei Yang, is due to be published by end of summer. John's poetry, a selection of which is collected in his chapbook, Dark, was described in the Rochester News as romantic and reflective, steeped in the moods and color of many-faceted stages of love and loss. His work involves the listener intellectually and emotionally, moving from a simple vantage point to the complications and complexities of the human condition with surprising clarity. His words will bring you in, hold you close, and leave you enthralled. Please give a warm welcome to John Simon.
Thank you for that very nice introduction. Of course, my novel isn't done by the end of the summer. It will be done by the end of September, maybe. Just as Sue said that she was surprised by David's invitation to co-chair, so when I emailed David for the featured poets for the poems from the Hoot column, and he informed me that I was to be one of them, I was surprised. I didn't think that I could ask him to co-feature with me, but anyway. Mark Twain said, write what you know, and I know Portsmouth a little, so these are my city poems. I'll start with Memorial. Last days seem often to be occasions of assemblies prefacing disassembly, as of the tired, too late loved bridge, a spare utilitarian grace soon to be substituted for the gentle spans and tapered towers. Many shoes and paws that daily trod, and some that never did, the graded walkway that borders these venerable spans, will later. But now, as dawns the day before the gates are closed and the work of the cutting torches begins, the perfect pale moon, its perfect nickel shape, that later, at its zenith, will illuminate peeling paint and rust and thick black grease, descends to the horizon. The glowing orange mass poised at the approach like a molten steel wheel. Sometimes it is like this. An old man sits on a bench in a park, alone. Alone, an old woman walks slowly, dragging the leg bandaged against some enduring affliction. A sturdy white lab that once lay in the grass beside the bench, graying beagle that once kept pace with the bandaged limb, are remembered and their names still sometimes spoken by the old man and woman, whose names, by those who remember them and the dogs, are still sometimes spoken. So it is with love, which is remembered and its name spoken, even when the one loved no longer walks or lies beside the one who loves, who is remembered, and whose name still is sometimes spoken by the one loved, and by those who knew the lovers and the love. The lab's name was Lumbi, the beagle's name was Buster, And the old man and the old woman, if I ever knew their names, I've forgotten. Suspiration. The orientation is wrong. What should be vertical, horizontal, horizontal, vertical. Felled by some frenzied fury of air, trunk and limbs prostrate, dry gnarled roots groping in vain for nourishment above a half-cup-shaped depression, full and empty it turns, as rain falls and seeps into soil from which roots still buried absorb what the branches need to leaf out, the leaves to unfold, transform, and fall the short distance like that between lovers' hearts. What came then shrieking to dice the living trunk? Many months after the act, the segmented corpse remains, fed no longer, feeding what it can, the air aquiver with belated lament, a dirge reprised for as long as life and love lost or mourned, spun of wings shimmering gold in the afternoon sun. That's about a tree on Too Silent. My day job, I edit arcane subject matter destined for obscure, peer-reviewed academic journals. But occasionally I have the refreshing, if not lucrative, diversion of editing a local author's book. And the two books mentioned, Enjoy the Journey by Perry McKinney and Tower 13 by Nathan Rizzo, are two such books. Perry, in fewer than 100 pages, spans about 60 years. Nate's book, Tower 13, at 200 plus pages, takes place in a single day. Both books are available from River Run. Book and Bar and Sheep Street Books also has Perry's book. I also have copies here, if anybody wants one. British author Neil Gaiman said that a town without a bookstore isn't a town, and we have 3 of them, so we're fortunate, aren't we?
Yes.
The books are also available on Amazon for those who don't want to support their books. But when I read in June during the open mic, I recited one of my own poems for a change, and it was about a poet, Jackson Warfield. Under the strictures of the open mic, I wasn't allowed to provide any context for that poem, but now I have the liberty of doing that. So I'm going to recite 4 short poems by Jackson, and then repeat my own poem in closing, so that you have a sense of who this guy is. Intersection. Time and space, heaven and hell, love and hate, peace and war, and everything else can be found right here at the intersection of life and death. Existence, a mere collision, an accident, a bad one. Interpreting slang. He put his drink down onto the bar and looked over at me, right into my eyes, and said, "I've had my share of birds before." "Nice," I replied, wondering whether, because I was in Australia, he meant women or actual birds. "One died," he continued, "and the other 4 got away." "Okay," I said. These are by Jackson. He told me what was on his mind. I'd met Hookie earlier that day outside a bar. He'd seen me refused at the backpacker bar down the street. and invited me into his bar where he was a member. We'd been knocking back pints of beer, and after an hour or so, he leaned over very close and said to me, "Now, Jack, sometime later on today, I'm probably going to try to kill you." I gazed at him a few moments, his skinny arms, gray hair, missing teeth. I raised my glass and said, "You know, I figured you probably would." Ass. It's not a bad word. When I saw him coming down the jungle trail, with a large load of sticks strapped to his back, I couldn't help but think, poor donkey, you were born a beast of burden, but your eyes are shaped for crying. So this is my tribute to Jack Jackson. I took half an hour out of a day, like every other day, to lie on a bed in a room empty, save for a cat, silent for want of batteries. Thought of you lying on a bed somewhere, gazing out at a ceiling fan, getting over being or thinking about getting drunk. Read your book of poems. At one, I laughed, but another thought, damn, he's nailed it. The one about the donkey could have brought tears if I'd been in the mood. You've been there, everywhere, seen it all, done your share, and haven't learned a thing, have you? Meanwhile, I've been here, mostly, seen a little, done less, learned about as much as you. Oh, if I could, I thought I was going to finish, but I forgot to. I wanted to give you a little excerpt from Dream Garden, and this is just a paragraph. It's sort of two stories of unrequited love in this Chinese garden that was twice the size of Manhattan, and it's thought to be the inspiration for Coleridge's Kubla Khan. So anyway, this is one story about one love story between a missionary and the emperor's daughter, the other between the emperor's son and a Muslim princess. So this is the missionary. This is a dream he has that he sort of parlays into being part of the mission to China. The dragon figured prominently in Chinese culture, and though humility would not permit him to imagine himself St. George, the association between subduing such a creature and the conversion of an entire kingdom animated Giuseppe's imagination and inspired a passion that played out that night in a dream in which he stood emboldened, he knew, by God's grace, before a monstrous dragon. The beast, though it towered above him, inclined its head and gazed at Giuseppe with a single eye, not malevolent but inquisitive, as the missionary spoke of the Trinity and of God become, for love of him, man. And as Giuseppe continued through the stories of the crucifixion and resurrection, scales, become men and women and children, began to fall from the great dragon and float to the earth until the entire beast had dissolved into a veritable sea of humanity. Every head turned up as began to fall the gentlest of rains, which Giuseppe consecrated so that all were baptized.
Bravo. That was beautiful.